right, so welcome everyone. Welcome back to Singapore. If you have been here before, if you haven't, welcome. And those of you who have been on an experience with me, welcome back. If you haven't, thank you for joining. My name is Imran, and I am streaming to you live from Singapore. It has just turned 7 p.m. over here, and the temperature, well, depending on where you are, if you're in the US, I know it's a little bit early for you in the US, but it's 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 29 degrees Celsius. But the good news is it's not raining, and I'm hoping that it will not rain throughout our walk. The sun is setting, it's a little bit cooler, so hopefully you'll see a little bit of the lights and the action after dark as well. So, welcome again. What are we going to do? Well, we are going to take a walk down Orchard Road. If you are familiar with Singapore, you will know that Orchard Road is the main shopping road down Singapore. About 2.5 kilometers of shopping, restaurants, nightlife, everything that you really want surrounding the central district. So this is not the office area as much as it is more of a shopping and market street. It does have a little bit of a history, and I'll give you a glimpse into that history during the walk. Now, for those of you who are joining me for the first time, I am a licensed tour guide here in Singapore, but I have reinvented myself in a sense, although it's been a long time since I've done that. In my earlier life, I was a banker, spent most of my career in finance, and then in about maybe 12, 13 years ago, I became a tour guide, and I'm loving it. I've had the privilege of living in many countries around the world, but since 1997, so yes, that's the lost century, I have been living in Singapore and call Singapore my home. Now, Orchard Road is really very much in the center of town. It's one of the most prestigious districts in Singapore. If you are an expat who has come here managing a company, or you are a regional manager, chances are that your first apartment or your first condo or your first choice of residence will be somewhere in this district. Perhaps when you get more comfortable with Singapore, you might head out of the Orchard area and move into perhaps an area that is more suited to you from the point of view of schooling or simply lifestyle. So anyway, now this is a conversation, so please feel free to ask questions, make comments, anything you want in the chat during the walkabout. So let's begin. Are we all ready? Hopefully we're all ready, and the audio and video is fine streaming to you. All right, so let us begin. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do a 360-degree pan, because we are at one end of Orchard Road. We're not going to walk the whole of Orchard Road, but I'm going to end at a very, very nice, historically significant and architecturally beautiful part of Orchard Road. And so please stay tuned for that. If you can, stay until the end, because that is really, really worth seeing. Now, you may not have caught a glimpse because it was hidden by the tree, but let me go back and show you something that, of course, if you are a collector of some, you might see at the back over there. This is also, so you can tell it's kind of the touristy spot, because that's, of course, where Singapore's Hard Rock Cafe is. So if you want your pin or your t-shirt when you come to Singapore from Hard Rock Cafe, this is where it's located, right at the beginning of Orchard Road. And Brewworks that you're seeing here has a very nice microbrewery, if that's your thing. Cafe Iguana, very well known for its cocktails, particularly its mojitos. So if you are interested in that sort of thing, that is one of the locations perhaps to start. So Let's begin. Now, Orchard Road is in the southern part of Singapore, and I will put up a subway map for you soon. But let's begin our walk. And as I mentioned, please feel free to make comments, ask questions, whatever it is that you like. There are plans to pedestrianize one section of Orchard Road coming up next year, and that will be a big help for those of us who like to walk around, because of course it means that it won't be as crowded. Now, it isn't really as crowded as it was pre-pandemic. You can see there are a lot of people, mainly tourists, because if you live here like I do in Singapore, then it's very rare that we come out to this part of town unless we are happening to come for a specific restaurant or a specific bar or location to meet our friends. And before we proceed too far, let me show you across the road, because this, if you know anything about Singapore, is the infamous Orchard Towers. Why do I use the word infamous? Well, this has three levels of bars in it, and those bars have essentially become like an informal red light area. And that has been going on for decades now. So it is something that, in fact, leads often to something which is quite rare in Singapore, which is fighting outside on the streets, on the pavements, early in the morning, late at night. So they are looking at ways to try and control that. But those of you who see Singapore and think of Singapore as a nanny state, I know some of you do, and to some extent that's a justified way of thinking. But do note that prostitution in Singapore is legal. So there is an industry, and there are licensed brothels, and the sex workers who work here, they are required to carry a health card to show that they have regular medical testing. Now, there's a little bit of a gray area, however, and let me just point out this hotel here, the Voco Hotel. Why do I point that out? Well, you can see there's a sculpture here, but the reason is that this hotel, for me at least, is a little bit nostalgic, because when I first came to Singapore, the first time ever in my life, it was way back in 1995, and I stayed in this hotel, and at the time it was called the Hilton. The Hilton has moved further down Orchard Road. There are many, many hotels on Orchard Road because, of course, it is also a hotel district. We do have other hotel districts around the Marina Bay area, but this is another one. So I was talking about prostitution and sex work, and how it's a little bit of a gray area because we have what we call a women's charter, which is a piece of legislation that was legislated way back in the 1960s, designed to promote gender equality. And in that women's charter, it is very clearly illegal for people to live off the earnings of prostitutions. So you cannot have someone who manages these prostitutes. The sex workers are able to or must manage themselves. And that, of course, becomes a little bit of a gray area because most places will operate as legal or as brothels, as entire buildings. And so far, at least, the police very much turns a blind eye to that. But anyway, enough about sex workers and prostitution in Singapore. Let's just enjoy the lights and the view. So you can see it's getting dark here now. And let me just quickly show you one bit here. If you see that house, some of you might see that it has a very distinct Thai Oriental design, and you would not be wrong because that is the Thai embassy. It is known as Siam House, and this this building was bought way back in, well, at least for us here, it's way back in 1897 by the Thai king who happened to be on a state visit to Singapore. At the time, in the 1890s, it was not very common for the Thai king to travel out. Singapore was the first stop in his international trip, which took him all the way to Europe. So this was the first time he stepped foot outside of Thailand. He liked it so much in Singapore that he ended up purchasing this house in 1897, and it is now the Thai embassy, Siam House. It's something that the Singapore government has been trying to get back from the Thai government for years and years and years. But the Thai government, of course, knows that it is an excellent location right in the heart of Orchard Road and is unwilling to accept any replacements. And you can see that all around the house, the Siam House, are tall buildings, skyscrapers, malls, office towers, etc. But you will see the Siam House is still sitting there as its original Thai location. So you can see here, all around it are the tall buildings, but you've got this little pocket, and that is the Thai embassy. And there we have the name, Orchard Road. And let me cross while I can, while it's green. So who of you out there have been to Singapore? Give me a thumbs up or a yes if you have. And of course, if you have, let me know. Pam, how long ago was that, Pam? Was Orchard Road looking similar to what you're seeing now? Oh, 20 years. All right. Well, we still had the main buildings of Orchard Road. And in fact, I'm going to show you some of the architectural icons, one of which has lost it, or that you might even have gone shopping in, two of which, in fact. But the one that you're seeing in front of you with the, say, the purple lights at the back, that is fairly new. Well, definitely wasn't around 20 years ago. And it's one of the main shopping malls today. It's called Ion Orchard. Yes, we are. That is where we're ending, Pam, Emerald Hill. That is where we will end the walk. So we are going to see some of the architecture there and even some of the bars, which should be open by then. So you can see there's quite a lot of al fresco dining and locations that are cafes. Even we started off those areas that were bars. And then on this side, this is quite a nice architectural icon, which is the Ion Orchard. All right, so you can see the Ion Orchard with all its screens and the way it's being held up by what look like trees. And that's true because the designer did have the idea of having kind of a forest-like canopy for this mall. So I do want to give you a view of it here, and you can see this is we'll have to cross this road underground. So I'm going to take you through one of the malls, but before we do that, let me show you a little bit of what's on the other side as well. So welcome everyone, those of you who have joined a bit late. My name is Imran and we are walking down Orchard Road, Singapore. And now across the road you see this building, and I'm going to take it vertical. All right, because if you see this building with the Chinese type pagoda, this building in some ways started the Orchard Road shopping district. Let me turn it vertical in 1, 2, 3. All right, so there was a gentleman, and I will give you more details about him, and he started CK Tang's. CK Tang's was the first department store in Singapore, and he planted it right here. And so you can see that there's the pagoda over there, and as a result of that first department store is how this area sort of naturally became a shopping street. So I'm going to go back horizontal in 3, 1, 2, 3.
Can I move right now?
No, to go down. All right, so now I also want to show you this, because if you look at this building, at the top there you might be able to see it, it says Shaw House, and the logo there is SB. Shaw Brothers. They were very big in the film industry here in Singapore. And they were very big in the film industry here in Singapore. And later on, we will even see a location where they owned a cinema. All right. So let's do our. You just give me a minute. Let me help. There's a lady who seems to have been abandoned here. Just give me 1 minute, please. If you want to cross the road, you have to go down the staircase and cut across. There's no other way across. From here, you can go down Wheelock Place.
I need to go here.
There's no way to cross this road above ground. You have to do it from below.
From there?
Yes.
From here?
From here. All right. I'm sorry about that, but this lady seemed a little bit lost and almost in a panic. And to cut across that road is very dangerous. You can't really cut across that. So we're going to go into Wheelock Place, and we're going to cut across the road ourselves and come out of that. If some of you may have noted, there was a little bubble on the other side. Let me see if I can put up a slide on CK Tang. So let's go inside. Some of you may recognize this Marks and Spencer store. All right, so this is a little bit of history of the CK Tang building. Yeah, thank you all. I'm sorry about the disturbance, but I was getting quite concerned because she was trying to cross that road, waiting for an opportune time to do so. And really, it's a very dangerous road to cross, and forget safety. She has to really come down and do it from below. So Okay, so we are in the mall and we are heading down. Now, on my, some of you may have seen my Not Crazy Rich Asians tour where I walk around my own home district, my home neighborhood. In the last tour, there was someone who was very surprised at how little traffic, pedestrian traffic, there was in my neighborhood. And of course, that is a residential neighborhood, so of course you don't want a lot of traffic because you want to live in a quiet zone. And of course, people were at work, but this will give you a little bit of a better idea of how busy Singapore can get. As far as time is concerned, we're at 7:25 right now. So I posted two images. One showing you Singapore and giving you a little bit of the dimensions of Singapore, how small we are. And then the next one is the subway system, the MRT map. Now, where I have come down in the shopping mall, I can connect to Orchard Road MRT. And Orchard Road MRT has been marked in that the subway map over there. So I guess malls look very much the same no matter where you are, right? Perhaps the demographics of the people is a little bit different depending on where exactly you are. One thing you might notice is that people generally, by and large, are still wearing masks here, even though the indoor mask mandate has been removed, except for health facilities, nursing homes, and public transport. So on the subway as well as on public buses. Anyone other than Pam who has also been to Singapore and maybe even walked around what we're doing here today, walked around Orchard Road? All right, so we are now coming up to very close to the subway station. If I point out this sign to you where it says Orchard MRT, MRT stands for Mass Rapid Transit, which is, of course, the name of our subway system. And what we are going to do is we're going to turn left and then go upstairs again on the escalator and take us out to back onto Orchard Road. Midori, I am sorry we're not going to see a food court on this tour today, but I do have a Chinatown tour coming up in the next, I think in 2 weeks. And so you can join me on that tour if you like, because we do walk through one of Singapore's most prominent, not coffee shop, but not food court, but hawker center. And that will show you why Singapore's street food has been recognized by UNESCO as an intangible heritage. So we're coming out of the bubble. Across the road, you see the Shaw House. And Pam, yes, definitely you must come back. And Nicole, oh, you're coming in December. Wow, wonderful. I hope you're going to enjoy it over here. There are so many things to see, and in fact, lots of tours, virtual tours of Singapore on Hago. So I have lots of competition, which means that you can basically plan out your itinerary of Singapore without leaving your living room and just enjoy Singapore and see what it is that you want to visit. So there's Shaw House. We have come from that side of Orchard Road. and I'm walking in the direction with the direction of traffic. So we were standing on the other side, and in fact, that lady was trying to cut across this road over here. Oh, wow, nice, Nicole. I think that should be what, around February next year, Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year. And I pointed out CK Tangs to you. All right, they're 22nd gen. So I pointed out CK Tangs to you. This is Tang Plaza. And this is the CK Tangs, part of the original department store that is left. But of course, it was modernized in the 70s. And the Marriott Hotel is now located in the what used to be the Tang Plaza. And some of you may be wondering, what is this ERP thing? This gantry up here? Any guesses from anyone? You can see the gantry over there. Time zone? No, not really. Anyone else? So this is where we've come out of. We've come out of the little bubble there, crossing the road. And or Midori, are you asking what time it is here? If you are, it is 7:30 p.m. 1930. So that ERP gantry. Any other guesses on what it could be? 2026 in Japan. Yeah, so you are 1 hour ahead. We are quite close as far as time is concerned, and we are waiting here in Singapore for Japan to completely open up. We keep seeing in the news that Japan is slowly removing all its restrictions on international travel, and now I believe you are considering allowing travelers to come in without having booked tours, come in just on their own, which I think for many Singaporeans is something that they're waiting for. So, shall we just see what Orchard Road looked like in the past? Let me just stop and post a few pictures for you. So you can then now see what Orchard Road looked like in the years before. And of course, why is it called Orchard Road? You can understand why, right? Orchard, this was a place where many, many fruit orchards were located. Singapore had a lot of Gambier plantations, and then it moved to pineapple. So it was a very an area that was quite heavily populated with these fruit orchards. Well, Tangs is, of course, right there, CK Tangs. Oh, I just felt a little drop on my head, so I think it's going to start raining, drizzling. But don't worry, we will continue with our tour. We're just going to I'm just going to have to fumble around a little with my umbrella if it starts to get heavy. So here's a piece of street art or installation art done by Swiss artists, and it is supposed to represent how people in cities, I think it's called Urban People, how people in cities are always in a rush and always doing something. Now, in case any of you are interested, this area, the property, yes, Robert, absolutely. The ERP stands for Electronic Road Pricing. And that means that every time someone drives by during peak hours, there's a little cash card and a device on their dashboard, and it will automatically deduct certain toll charges for using the road. We have these gantries all over the island because the idea is that if you are using the road, you should pay for it. So user charges, and it is also a mechanism to control traffic flow or to influence traffic flow, which means that if they find that certain areas are getting very, very busy, perhaps they will raise the ERP, the electronic road pricing, the toll on those roads, and try and get people to move to another part of the road network. So Singapore was in fact the first city in the world to start imposing what we now refer to as congestion charges. And that was when you drove into the central business district. Not here, but the CBD area, you had to pay a toll when you came in. When I first moved here in 1997, it was not electronic the way it is done now through these gantries. It was a paper sticker that we had to buy. It used to cost me 60 Singapore dollars a month, and I had to put it up on my windscreen. And there was a police officer who would stand at the entrance of the CBD, who would try and check as I was driving into the CBD to make sure that I had paid. And of course, when I park in those areas, then the parking attendants would also check to see that I had paid, otherwise I would get fined. Buskers. And yes, you need a license for buskers. Orchard Road is where the Christmas light up is done in Singapore. We have a light up for many different festivals. Next month, October, is the Festival of Lights for the Hindus, the major festival for Hinduism. It is called Diwali or Deepavali, depending on whether you're from North India or South India, and Little India will all be decked up in lights. And here's something that let me see if I can get close enough to show you, because these are ice cream sandwiches. And what they will do is they will take the ice cream, and over here they've shown waffles, but if you look at this one on the side, now it's not very clear, but basically they will take a slice of bread and put ice cream in between a slice of bread, make it into an ice cream sandwich. That is a very, very common snack here. Remember, it gets very hot, so Midori knows about how hot it can get over here. So an ice cream sandwich is something that is very welcome in the heat. Maybe this is something that would make a decent postcard. The red lights. Yeah, Peter, it is cheap, particularly when you convert it. And Singapore is good for all budgets. So our street food, which is hygienic, safe, clean, is also relatively cheap. You can get a decent meal for maybe $5 or $6 US. Of course, if you want to go for fine dining, that is available as well. And the budget, the sky's the limit. Nicole, you know Singapore so well. That ice cream cart at Boat Quay, when before the pandemic, that man used to be my friend, because whenever I took my school tours around Boat Quay, they would always stop and hound his ice cream cart and buy these ice cream sandwiches from him. So he was always very happy with me that I would bring these 15, 20 students to sell. So I'm not sure if it's the same gentleman there now. There's one across the bridge that's a senior couple, old couple, and the lady is not very friendly. I keep getting told to go away when I go near her. But of course, they do their own business, and they're still very nice. There you go, Nicole. So I think you know which one I'm talking about, right? And those of you who are familiar with Singapore, you will know that this we are coming up to is Takashimaya. this red building with the Louis Vuitton shop in it. Taka, yes, Taka is a landmark in Singapore, and it is basically used as a landmark, a meeting point. So I'll meet you in Taka, and it has been around forever, essentially, and it is has an interesting history, which I'm going to tell you a little bit about. However, before that, let me spin around and show you one building here, which is Lucky Plaza. Why am I showing you Lucky Plaza? Well, Lucky Plaza, if you come here on a Sunday, you might recognize CK Tanks behind it as well. If you come here on a Sunday, this is where all the, well, it seems like all, but of course I'm exaggerating, where many of the maids, the foreign domestic workers who are from the Philippines, they congregate over here on their day off, which is Sunday. So this is basically like Little Manila on a Sunday. We have another plaza called Peninsula Plaza, another shopping mall. That becomes like a little Myanmar because all the workers, the foreign domestic workers primarily, as well as other workers from Myanmar, they tend to congregate over there. And Little India is where all the workers from the subcontinent, South Asia, which is primarily Bangladesh and India, where they tend to congregate. So thank you very much, Pam, for your generosity. Tips are always welcome. If you can tip, please do so. It, of course, always helps me in pushing out more content on this platform. If you can't, a rating or a review, if you enjoyed it, is also very helpful. And simply posting on Facebook as well. So here we have Takashimaya, the red brick building. Now this area, that Takashimaya, which is really very, very big, because we've already been walking for a while, and Takashimaya started a while ago. This area was a graveyard before it was converted into this shopping mall. And when CK Tang bought that area to set up his department store, people were very concerned about how successful he would be, because in Chinese tradition, it is not considered a good sign to be near a graveyard, particularly being able to see it. And so they thought that it was not going to be successful, his department store, CK Tang. But of course, the shopping mall, the department store was successful, and the graveyard was removed, and this shopping mall, Takashimaya, was put in its place. And if you look at it, now I will show you, post a picture as well, the community that owned the graveyard, in a nod to its historical purpose, they have designed the building a little bit like a tombstone, a traditional Chinese tombstone in a cemetery. And that is because it's a way to kind of respect and honor the area as it used to be, which was a graveyard. Let me show you. You might be able to see the similarity there between the Takashimaya or Nian city and a traditional Chinese tombstone. So we'll carry on further down Orchard Road. Do people see the similarities between the design of Takashimaya and a traditional Chinese tombstone? The two kind of pillars on the left and right with the names and etc. in the middle. That's kind of how they have designed it. And the reason it is called, uh, the graves basically were exhumed. Most of them, people have incinerated them. So we don't actually, it's interesting you bring that up, but there are really only there's only really one major graveyard in Singapore for people today. And even their graves are exhumed after 7 years. So most people in Singapore will not even have graves. They will have tablets, or they will put their ashes in a columbarium. So over here, basically, the graves were removed if the ancestors wanted them. But I would suspect, because we're talking about a graveyard from the 1800s, that most ancestors, most of those graves would be unclaimed. However, if you notice the name was Ngee Ann City. Ngee Ann is the name that is used by the one of the major dialect groups or the clans of Singapore, which is the Teochew community. And the Teochew community still has a very active clan association, so they probably took care of all the graves, moved them, and put them in a temple somewhere around the island. I hope that answers your question, Lori. We had a cemetery recently that called Bukit Brown that many people wanted to preserve for its historical significance, and the government wanted to build. It's that same old cliche. Actually, they wanted to build a highway through a part of it, and so it became quite a major discussion point, and ultimately the significant graves that were historically significant have been retained as far as the tombstones are concerned and moved to other parts of Singapore, but the majority of the graves have essentially been just worked over. So it's an issue that keeps occurring in Singapore because of the scarcity of land. And the first Prime Minister of Singapore, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, is famously quoted once when someone complained at a press conference that, look, you are taking over these graves, you're destroying my ancestors' homes and all these things. And he basically turned around, and he was a very headstrong man. I'm giving you a 360 here as I talk. He was a very headstrong man, and he turned around and he told those individuals that, look, do you want me to take care and prepare for your grandchildren, or do you want me to take care of your grandparents? So that was his philosophy. Now, in that very, very rapid growth that Singapore saw in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, a lot of history was destroyed. I will actually use a strong word. Destroyed may be a little bit too strong, but a lot of the history was erased. And so now there's very much, as we have got to a stage where we are a developed city, developed country, now there's a much more significant effort to maintain sites of national importance, national heritage. So there is a price that Singapore has paid for its rapid development. Some of you may have attended my in-house tour, Singapore 101, where I extolled how Singapore had developed very quickly in one generation from third world to first world. Well, there was a price paid for that, and that's we've seen in the form of historical sites, including the cemetery, the Teochew cemetery where Takashimaya is. Yes, CK Tangs is definitely still open, Tessa, and we walked past it. If you, I don't know if you can go back on this thread, but I have put up some photographs of the original CK Tangs that was there in the 50s, and what it is now, which includes the Marriott Hotel. So Tangs is definitely still open. Ah, all right. It was a very successful department store. In fact, well until the late 1990s, the early part of the century, CK Tangs was considered one of the most prime department stores. Now, of course, we have so many different shopping malls, as I think most major cities everywhere do. No problem, Lori. I will. I generally repeat all my tours in a from time to time. So just keep a lookout. If you're not already following me, please. Maybe that will be a way to keep aware of when my tours are coming. Otherwise, I do also post on the Hago Facebook page. So this side of Orchard Road seems a little bit busier than the ones that we were walking in earlier. I will, Lori. Thank you for your interest there. Now, behind Orchard Road, behind Takashimaya, you saw that department store that we walked by that I said looked a little bit like the Tombstone. Behind that, a new development is coming up, which is a mixed-use commercial but primarily residential development. And that development is designed by the famous architect Moshe Safdie, who also designed Singapore's Marina Bay Sands and many other buildings around the world. And that Orchard Boulevard, just for your information, on a per square foot basis, is going for approximately 2,500 US dollars per square foot. So you can see how in this district property prices are very, very steep. So any other comments from people? Does this look a little bit like the city where you are living in? If you live in a city, maybe you don't live in a city, a slightly more rural area, but if you live in a city, does this remind you, or are there any similarities? If you were here in the 50s, Tessa, you might also remember a pavilion cinema. We are going to go to the site of that cinema, and that cinema was owned by the Shaw brothers for a short while. Remember, we walked past Shaw Plaza. I pointed out the building to you with the SB sign. They were big in the film industry, the local film industry, both including in the Malay language. They also have made a lot of films that were very famous in the Malay language. Yeah, it would be hard to forget that. So they were very big at that time, and it's still pretty much a household name here. All right, Green Man. So we're crossing the road. And if you are visiting Singapore, you should know also that there is a Singapore Tourism Board office across the road over here where my camera is pointing inside that. A little bit of information on buskers over here. In order to get a busking license, you of course have to be local. So you have to be a Singaporean or a permanent resident, and before they issue you the license, this might be odd for some of you. You have to do a 5-minute audition in front of the National Arts Council so that they so that they believe that you are worthy of busking on the streets. That might be different from the way it's done in many other countries where you can, I imagine, I'm not sure, but I imagine just basically pick up your guitar and start singing on the pavement and start collecting cash. And something a little bit also, the police cameras everywhere in Singapore. It's why we consider it to be one of the safest cities in the world. If I could count all the cameras around the city for you, today there would be 90,000 cameras. And Singapore is a small island, so you can do the math yourself as to how many cameras there are per square meter. And this number of 90,000 is doubling between now and 2030. So it is going up to almost 200,000 cameras within the next 5-6 years. As far as tourists in Singapore are concerned, pre-pandemic, we are getting tourists back, but pre-pandemic, there were about 19 million tourists that came to Singapore, which is a very large number considering that the population is about 5.4 million, so almost 4 times the population. The largest market pre-pandemic, they were Indonesia, China, and India. Lori was asked if someone is always watching. No, actually, there's not being watched all the time. They're only used in case there's a crime committed. So in the beginning of the tour, if you were with me, I mentioned outside Orchard Towers where that that informal red light district had arisen. There were a lot of fights. Well, they will use the CCTVs there to identify individuals who were involved in the fight and then be able to use that as evidence in the courts to charge them. So they are not actively watched, only when necessary. Now this Orchard Gateway, this is the site of the old cinema, the Pavilion Cinema. You're very welcome, Angel. Actually, it's a nice, pleasant walk, especially in the evening, for me as well. And so I enjoy it. And this is where we're coming almost to the end, by the way. This is where I'm going to turn in and show you some very interesting architecture. You might see that Peranakan Place in front of you. Well, we're going to turn in that little lane where you can see people eating outside, because that is Emerald Hill. So I talked about the tourism board. Here it is, the Singapore Visitor Center. So in case you're lost anywhere, you can always try and locate this. But Singapore is very easy to navigate. And of course, with Google Maps, very, very simple. Before I take you into the lane, let me give you a look back at where we're coming from. So Orchard Gateway, this was the location of the Pavilion Cinema. Raffles Bar is in the Raffles Hotel. So actually, if you continue to walk up this road in the direction where I'm going, you will hit that City Hall area where the Raffles Bar is. So I would say it's not such a long walk if you have the time, maybe another half an hour, 40 minutes or so. So this is where we are coming from. And while we're here, let me post something on I think this is the right image. Yes, so we are going to go up Emerald Hill and Orchard Gateway, which is what I pointed out to you right now, that is where this pavilion cinema used to be. And during the 1950s, it was very popular for people to come. They had midnight shows, things like that. So this is Emerald Hill, a historic area. Many of the houses we're going to see were built in the 1920s. It became known as a Peranakan Street, which means they were primarily Straits Chinese, people from mainland China who came to Singapore in the 1800s, 1900s, adopted local customs, local traditions. In fact, many of the Chinese men ended up marrying local women, and their kids spoke Malay as their mother tongue. This area also houses one of my favorite bars. I don't go out very much, but when I do, there's a bar here called Ice Cold, which is one that I do very, very rarely, but I do visit. And here's one of these nice traditional Peranakan houses with its plaque at the front door. I'll take you closer. It's after dark, so the lighting is not great, but and let me also show you some of the work. You can see the carvings there, and also on this side. Let me bring you down and show you the door, because we do have these swinging doors here, and the wood carvings on the door as well. Thank you very much, David. It's always helpful from those of you who are willing and able to tip. It helps me to produce more content on the Hago platform. And let me show you some of the tiles. So this would be from the 1930s, pre-war. Sure, Angel, no problem. Thank you for joining, and thank you, Tessa. Very kind of you. It is a long tour. I sometimes lose myself when I am talking, enjoying my own walk. Sure, please. Don't feel obligated to stick around. It's nice of you to join. And these are the old shop houses on Emerald Hill. Now they are basically bars. I'll try and do a tour of here of Orchard Road during the day as well, so we get better views of the work on these shop houses. But you can see there we have Ice Cold, which is the one that I mentioned. Was a fairly regular hangout for me in the early days after my arrival. That, of course, means that this bar has lost it for over a quarter of a century now. And they have a very, very fine selection of beers inside. So I think that there is actually no better place for me to end than in front of Ice Cold. So I want to thank all of you for joining me on this tour. It's a little bit dark. Let's see if we can get a little bit more light here. So thank you for joining me on this walk through Orchard Road. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you a little bit of an idea of what the city is like when in the shopping district, the commercial area. Gives you an idea also of the type of things that are available. It is a very, very common place for visitors to Singapore to stay. So maybe if you do visit Singapore and you end up staying in a hotel on Orchard Road, but let it be known that you can stay anywhere in the city as long as, in my opinion, as long as you're close to a subway station, because the city is so well connected by subway that if you want to pay a little bit less for your hotel room or your accommodation and you go a little bit outside of the center, it's not a big issue. The subway system starts normally at about 5:30 in the morning, 5:40, and last trains, depending on where you are. So from here in the Orchard area, last train will probably be after midnight, and in other areas generally between 11:45 to midnight. So taxis, of course, are plentiful. Uber, we have our own Grab, all those easily available. So no issues in getting around in the city. All right. So again, thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed the tour, if you can afford to, if you can leave a tip, please do. Thank you to those who already have. If you can't, no problem. Just please, if you enjoyed it, maybe you can think about writing a review or putting something up on Facebook. I do have another tour coming up of Chinatown, a street of Harmony, Telok Ayer Street, in a couple of weeks. Look out for that. And I am traveling to Borneo or East Malaysia in later this month on the 20th. So I am hoping to do at least one, possibly two tours from Kota Kinabalu in Borneo, East Malaysia. So do look out for those. Those will be short notice tours because I'm not very familiar with the place. It's my first time there. And so, but I hope to be able to maybe share that city with you and learn about it with you and explore it with you. So do look out for that. And with that, this is Imran here in Singapore signing off. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Have a good evening. Good night, wherever you are. All right. Bye-bye.